Meanwhile, trade union Cosatu says failure to stabilise coalitions at local government runs the risk of jeopardizing workers and service delivery to the citizens of the country.
Joining me is Matthew Parks from Cosatu. Thank you so much for your time. Now, this is very important as we build up to the elections next year. Talk to us about how the unions are feeling, particularly looking at how these coalitions are taking place across the country.
Yeah. So this is a very important matter for workers. If municipalities can't form a government and pass budgets, it puts municipal workers in a difficult position where they don't get paid. If we see the kind of chaos we've witnessed in Gauteng and Nelson Mandela Bay, in many municipalities across the country, in all provinces, if we see that being replicated next year at a provincial government level, it means many public services will not be paid. It means critical functions like hospitals won't have the money allocated to them. We can imagine what we've seen in Gauteng, where you have a new mayor of Johannesburg or Nelson Mandela Bay every other month. What happens that replicates at a national level? Are we going to have presidential inaugurations every other month? That's going to mean all public services that are dependent upon budget allocations could be in serious jeopardy. So we think this is a good dialogue. We need to see what is the framework for coalitions, what are the kind of the legislative modalities we need to look at to deal with issues of no confidence, how often should it take place, what's the threshold to get into parliament or legislature, how could it try to help foster a spirit of coalition. It's not a partisan issue about ANC or EFF or DA or FF+, but something we should all be able to discuss and agree to as South Africans, whether across political parties or trade unions or business or churches, how we want to govern the country. But I think for us it's a good dialogue the President is calling to see how to try to navigate this thing, irrespective of what political party we must support. But there should be some common agreements. And it's better we do reach those agreements now, before the elections, because if you introduce it after the fact, it's going to be chaotic. We've seen at times when provincial MECs for local government have tried to introduce coalitions or a mayoral committee system after this chaos on local government level, that gets then challenged in court by whichever party is aggrieved. So let's rather have a non-partisan, inclusive approach, which everybody can agree to, but we need to have stability, because we can't afford the chaos we've seen in Gauteng being replicated provincially and nationally. It's going to make life very difficult for workers, for working class communities who depend upon public services. So I think for us we're quite keen, but we want to see not just feel-good discussions, but practical interventions and a practical framework in legislation that can get done before the elections, because the parliamentary calendar is soon coming to an end in November. So whatever we agree to here, we need to look at those modalities, especially because in the next year's elections, we'll be having independent candidates being allowed to stand too. So that's an additional element of uncertainty and possible messiness and chaos. So the more kind of common agreements we can reach now, and this won't be the end of the journey. I think we might need to amend the electoral legislation over the next 10, 15 years as South Africa's democracy evolves. But it's good for us to learn from the examples of many countries in Europe, across the world, who struggle to manage coalitions. You see, for example, in Italy or Israel, they have a prime minister being elected every year, elections every year. We don't want that kind of chaos here, given our many socio-economic challenges.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Well, that's where we leave it for now. We'll continue giving you interviews and discussions as the government hosts this national dialogue on coalitions. For Newzroom Afrika on channel 405, I'm Athi Mtongana in Cape Town.